A distinction has to be firmly seized in our consciousness, the capital distinction between mechanical nature and the free rod of nature, between the Ishvara or single luminous divine will and the many executive modes and forces of the universe.
Yeah.
Shall I read? Continue?
The whole para. Oh, it's a very small.
Yes, please.
No, you read the next one also.
You can continue.
Nature, not as she is in her divine truth, the conscious power of the eternal, but as she appears to us in the ignorance, is executive force, mechanical in her steps, not consciously intelligent to our experiences of her, although all her works are instinct with an absolute intelligence. Not in herself master, she is full of a self-aware power, which has an infinite mastery, and because of this power driving her, she rules all and exactly fulfills the work intended in her by the Ishvara. Not enjoying, but enjoyed, she bears in herself the burden of all enjoyments. Nature, as Prakriti, is an inertly active force, for she works out a movement imposed upon her. But within her is one that knows. Some entity sits there that is aware of all her. Prakriti works mastery, the delight of the Purusha, the being associated with her or seated within her. But she can participate in them only by subjection and reflection of that which fills her. Purusha knows and is still and inactive. He contains the action of Prakriti within his consciousness and knowledge and enjoys it. He gives the sanction to Prakriti's works, and she works out what is sanctioned by him for his pleasure. Purusha himself does not execute. He maintains Prakriti in her action and allows her to express in energy and process and formed result what he perceives in his knowledge. This is the distinction made by the Sankhyas. And although it is not all the true truth, not in any way the highest truth either of Purusha or of Prakriti, still it is a valid and indispensable practical knowledge in the lower hemisphere of existence.
Yeah. So, in all yoga and all philosophy also, the distinction between Purusha and Prakriti has to be very firmly seized. But there are, at each level of consciousness, okay, Sri talks of 7 levels, others talk of other levels. So at each level, the nature of Purusha as well as Prakriti goes on changing. Okay, that's the interesting part. But the essence is this, essentially, okay, and we'll discuss that in this para, and we'll spend a little time on it today because the thing must be grasped very well. Okay? It must be understood very well. Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha at the highest level is one, but at the lowest level is another. Now we'll discuss it at the highest level. Highest level we have Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda. Okay? So, Chit is consciousness. So, you can say Purusha is consciousness. But consciousness, as we are saying here, is still and inactive. The word still here means silent, without movement, without action. Is still and inactive. But he has knowledge. He has got tremendous amount of knowledge. He has got all knowledge in fact. But he works in the physical world. He uses his power. And the power is Prakriti. Power and also his expression. What he wants to say, he will use Prakriti to create the world. So, essentially, the two are always together, but in the Sankhya philosophy, they are always separate from each other. They may be together, but they are separate from each other. In the Advaita philosophy, they are one and the same thing at the highest level, and at the lower level, they become different. So, keep this one example that I'll give you, and I will add one more of my own. Usually in Advaita, the example given is the sun. If the sun is Purusha, Prakriti is its power to shine and give light, heat and light. Okay? In other words, something essential and the expression of it or its nature is the Prakriti. Okay? So you can say it in that way. If you think of a flower, okay, I usually add this flower because also it is quite easy to understand. If the flower is a Purusha, Prakriti is its fragrance, its color, its form. Okay, that is the Prakriti. So this is the basic thing, and usually at the highest level, Prakriti is potential movement at the highest level. But when it comes down to the physical level, it becomes all movement. And Prakriti is full consciousness at the highest, Purusha is full consciousness at the highest level. But when it comes down to the physical world, it loses its consciousness and goes to sleep. But it has to awake. And that's the whole thing of the yoga. You have to awake your Purusha. Now, this is the background. We'll start reading what he's saying. But remember also, as I told you, that at each level, the character of Purusha as well as Prakriti goes on changing. But this is the basic truth. One is pure consciousness, other is Shakti. Okay?
Rangada, one question.
Yes, tell me.
According to your example, the sun and the light.
Yes.
So, but without the light, then there is no sun. Without the heat or the force, there is no sun. But it is not true in that Purusha and Prakriti.
The way you are saying, it becomes this. It means that you are going to the Advaita philosophy that they are always together. Okay? What you are saying means that the two are always together. They cannot be separate.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. But the Sankhya philosophy at the lower end, okay, that's why I'm just saying it's not full truth. But at the lower end, they seem to be different. Okay, Purusha and Prakriti become different and separated. Is it not true that at your level you may have knowledge of something? Okay, take take anyone who is keen on manufacturing something. Okay, let's take I want to make a car. Huh? I have the will and the power, but I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the technique. But so therefore, there is a difference between my knowledge and my power to do something. I have the power. I am Ratan Tata. Okay, I have the power and the money, and I can do it. But I don't have the knowledge, so I have to engage an engineer who knows how to do it. So at our level, Purusha and Prakriti are separate. Okay. So what you said corresponds to the Advaita philosophy that they are always together.
Okay.
Okay. So that's one way of saying, but you have to see the other way. That's why I told you that at each level, the nature of the two changes. Okay. Right. So a distinction has to be firmly seized in our consciousness. The capital distinction between mechanical nature. Note the word mechanical. In other words, it is just force. There is no consciousness in it. Okay? And the free Lord of nature. The free Lord of nature, you can use the word God in a very loose sense. Okay? Between the Ishvara or single luminous divine will and the many executive modes and forces of the universe. Okay? The Ishvara is the Purusha, the highest Purusha, or a single luminous divine will is the Prakriti. Okay? But at the highest level, it is single and it is luminous divine will. Okay? The consciousness is, the will is force, but it is luminous. Luminous means full of knowledge. And the many executive modes and forces of the universe. In the universe, the forces become seemingly unconscious. The river is flowing, it is only subject to mechanical laws. The wind is blowing, there is only a mechanical force. There is no consciousness in it. The wind is not directing itself consciously, I'll go there, I'll go here. No. It is just doing what it is made to do because it's mechanical force. Okay. Now, Swayam there is a much larger discussion. So, I told you basically, again I repeat, at the highest level, Purusha and Prakriti are always one. It is not that they are together, sitting in the same room. They are one. They are absolutely intimately connected, not connected with each other even. They are the same thing. Okay, Chit and Shakti. Chit Shakti is one. Okay, so, and at the lower level, they seem to be different. They seem to be separated. Now, I read the next para, small para. The small para we have just read, I am going to read the big one. Nature, not as she is in her divine truth. So, what she is in her divine truth is the divine Shakti. Okay, Adi Shakti. She is fully conscious at the highest level because she is Shakti. She is the power of the divine and she is fully one with consciousness. Therefore, Sri is very specifying nature below in the physical world, not as she is in her divine truth, the conscious power of the eternal. That's what she is at the highest level. But as she appears to us in the ignorance, in other words, below here in the physical world, when we see nature, we see trees, we see rivers, we see animals, we see so many things, we see stones, mountains, whatnot. Everything is nature. Okay? And that nature as she is there is, as she appears to in the ignorance, is executive force. She is the one who is doing all the work. Okay? She is the one who is doing all the work. Mechanical in her steps, she seems to be mechanical, not consciously intelligent to our experiences of her. Okay, although all her works are instinct with an absolute intelligence. Now, we'll explain this a little bit, and we have dealt with it several times, but all this bears repetition. Okay? She is saying that apparently a tree is growing unconsciously. Okay, and it seems to be mechanical. But although all her works are instinct with an absolute intelligence, there is a complete guidance even in the mechanical action. There is a consciousness hiding behind. Usually the examples given are in the animals. Okay, they know exactly what to do. They know what to eat, what not to eat. Okay, take the birds. Okay, in winter they fly, and they fly away to warmer climates. It's not that they are consciously thinking that, oh, now winter is going to come and I'll get cold and I'll die. I have to go out. No, it is just mechanical nature, but the consciousness is there behind guiding it, and it migrates 4,000, 5,000 miles. This is unbelievable. Okay? Many of our Indian birds come from Siberia. Okay? And then in America also, from the northern, they go down to the south. They 4,000-5,000 miles they fly, and sometimes with small stops in the middle, wherever there is water. Okay, so this is one example given. Instinct. Then the other example given is usually the creeper. Okay, the creeper is growing, but is it growing upwards? To help it go upwards, it sends out tendrils. You know what a tendril is? Small thing. If you have seen very carefully, it comes out of the stem of the branch. It is not part of the leaves or anything. It is separate, and then it is looking. If you do time-lapse photography, you will see it is looking for the support. As soon as it gets the support, its movement becomes 5 times faster, and it binds itself round and pulls itself up. I have a beautiful silence creeper in my garden, and I just bought that. But there is a mechanicalness in it. In other words, when it finds anything, any support, it binds itself around it. Very often it binds itself around itself or its own branch. It's not fully conscious. It's very interesting. And this is how it goes on. Another example that Srimto gives is the spider web. Okay? The spider has to eat insects. How will he get insects? So he builds a web. And that web is so beautifully made. No? Unbelievable. So this is what Srimto is meaning by, although all her works are instinct with an absolute intelligence, there is a pakka, full knowledge is there behind, but apparently there seems to be no consciousness at all. Okay, so this is the example given. Okay, Many examples are there like that. You see in nature everywhere. Instinct is what we are talking about. Instinct is nothing but intelligence guiding the mechanical force. Okay? So this is what Sandy is saying. So at the highest level, she is fully conscious force of the divine. She is one with the consciousness. At the lower level, she seems to have lost her consciousness, but she is guiding, she is being guided by an intelligence behind, which is there and prompting her. Okay, do this, do that. But it goes on mechanically. It reminds me of another image. It may help, I don't know. When an actor is on the stage, okay, he has made his speech by heart, but sometimes he may forget. So there is always a prompter in the wings waiting, and as soon as he sees that the actor is fumbling, okay, he immediately whispers the next word. The audience will not hear, but the actor hears, and he continues his speech as though nothing has happened. Okay, so this is like that. Okay? Instinct is there, knowledge is there behind, telling the force what to do. So, okay. So, now, not in herself master. He is talking at this first level of the Prakriti. Okay? Not in herself master. She is not master. She is just mechanically doing what she has been told to do. Not in herself master. She is full of a self-aware power. The self-aware power. Note the word self-aware means consciousness and power. Now, Sridhar has got a footnote here. Self-aware power. This power is a conscious divine Shakti of the Ishvara, the transcendent and universal mother. That's why nature is often referred to as the divine mother. The Jagan Mata. She is the one who is conscious and she is doing everything. Now we continue. Not in herself master. She is full, but apparently she is not. But she is full of a self-aware power, but she is not master of her own power. Okay, the intelligence is guiding her, which has an infinite mastery, and because of this power driving her, she rules all and exactly fulfills the work intended in her by the Ishvara. So you can see so much of reason and method in nature. When the seasons come, okay, there are 4 seasons that come. You can find a reason also if you think deeply for why there is a spring, then there is summer, then there is autumn, and then there is winter, and the whole cycle starts again. So this seems to be mechanical, but there is a purpose to it. So this is all what we saying. Nature, not in herself master, is full of a self-aware force, which has an infinite mastery, and because of this power driving her, she rules all and exactly fulfills the work intended in her by the Ishvara. The Ishvara is at the highest level, the transcendent, the one who is standing outside the universe. Not enjoying, nature does not enjoy. Nature is being enjoyed. Okay? Not enjoying, but enjoyed. Okay? Even at our level, our consciousness is enjoying the body-mind life. Okay? She bears in herself the burden of all enjoyments. She is the one giving enjoyments to the Purusha, who is there standing behind her in the physical world. But at the highest level, there is fully the Ishvara and his force. And they are both enjoying. Nature as Prakriti is an inertly active force. Nature as Prakriti, that means in the lower levels of consciousness, in the physical world, is an inertly active force. She is active, but inert, no consciousness. Force. For she works out a movement imposed upon her, but within her is one that knows. That one again is the Purusha, deep inside, sitting and guiding. Okay? Like the prompter on the stage. But within her is one that knows. Some entity sits there that is aware of all her motion and process. Prakriti works containing the knowledge the mastery, the delight of the Purusha, the being associated with her or seated within her. The Purusha is always there, deep inside her. The consciousness is always there in the unconscious energy of the physical world. Okay? But she can participate in them only by subjection and reflection of that which fills her. Okay. So, this is where you have to understand the sentence. But she can participate in them. Participate in what? In the mastery and the knowledge. She can participate in them only by reflection of that which fills her. In other words, we all feel that our body-mind life is acting, okay, consciously. Actually, it's not true. Okay, it's all mechanical. So, don't we feel that I am deciding to do this, I am going to today cook this, I am going to play football today. You feel that you are doing. Okay? And who is the you? The body-mind life. You are not conscious of the soul. So this is the what saying. So only by reflection, it's not a reality. Okay? It's by reflection that she feels that she is acting. Purusha, now he comes to Purusha. Now this part is clear. You, so long as you are identified with the body-mind life, the Purusha is identified with the body-mind life, you think that the body-mind life is doing everything. You are the Purusha, but you are you are identifying with the wrong element, and therefore you think that she is doing everything. Body-mind life is doing everything. Okay. Actually, it's not. It is being guided. The charioteer is the Purusha. The horses which are being guided are the Prakriti. Okay. They have the power, and the charioteer is the one who is guiding the horses. Your horses are body-mind life, which you want. Okay? So, now we come to Purusha. Purusha knows. So, Purusha is always knowledgeable. And is still, he doesn't move. Still here, in the sense of absolutely calm and quiet, not active. And inactive. Now, it's interesting because he is using two words, still and inactive. Why is he using two words? Purusha knows and is still and inactive. Is it possible to be still and yet active? Yes, that is exactly what liberation is all about. Anyway, that we'll discuss later on. He is a Purusha. He contains the action of Prakriti because he is there and he contains the action of Prakriti within his consciousness and knowledge and enjoys it. He allows force to create and he enjoys what nature is creating. In other words, the divine is enjoying his creation. Okay? That is the reason why there is a whole philosophy called the Leela. The physical world is nothing but the Leela. It's a play of the divine. He is creating and going on enjoying. Okay? That is also, even at our level, it's like that. Whenever we create something, there is enjoyment of it. A musician creating a piece of music, he enjoys what he's doing. A sculptor is sculpting something and he enjoys what he's doing. Whenever we create something, there is enjoyment. A poet also. The always enjoyment of creation always goes with enjoyment. And the world is nothing but a creation. That's another way of defining Purusha Prakriti. Purusha is the one that permits the creation. And everything that is created is Prakriti. You can think of it that way. In other words, Satchidananda is the Purusha, but Satchidananda creating the world. Okay, the world is created. It has got it is the expression of the divine. That is the creation is the Prakriti. You can think of it that way also. At our level also, you have a soul which is uncreated. The soul is something self-existent, but your body-mind life is created, and therefore your body-mind life is the Prakriti. You have a soul in you which is a Purusha, uncreated. Okay. Aja is the word used in the Gita. Aja, not born. When you say not born, it means not come into the physical world. Okay. So your soul is part of the divine. It is not born. Aja, Nitya, Shashvato Purana. It is a From ancient times here, Purusha is the soul. And note interestingly that your psychic being also is actually evolving. Okay? It's not silent. It's a deputy of the divine. We'll discuss that a little later, but that's it. That's why there are three Purushas. I told you that at each level there is a difference in the Purusha. Okay, now the question has come up, so we'll discuss it. The psychic being in you is the divine element, and it is permanent. Okay, but in the lower, it is evolving. It is inactive and still, but it is evolving. Through every life, it evolves and changes. Therefore, it is the Gita says it is the Kshara Purusha. The Kshara Purusha is your psychic being, is a Purusha, is a consciousness, but it is mutating, it is growing through all lives. Then the next one, when you go to the second level of consciousness, the spiritual planes of consciousness, it becomes the Akshara Purusha, the consciousness of the self, the Brahman, okay, the Atman, where you feel that you are not acting at all and you feel yourself separate from your body, mind, life, and therefore you feel that you are outside the universe. Okay, so that's the Akshara Purusha. But that's not all. There is another third Purusha, which is the supramental, and you have to go to that level to understand the whole creation and what is being created and why it is being created. Otherwise, you don't understand. Even in the spiritual planes of consciousness, you don't understand what is happening and why it is happening like that. So that is the Uttama Purusha. So the Gita's description, Kshara Purusha, mutable being, Akshara Purusha, immutable being at the second level, and the third level, Uttama Purusha, therefore you turn it around and say Purushottama. So Swayambhu, the word Swayambhu uses for Uttama Purusha is Ishvara, Lord, Master. Okay? Then the word Purusha, the witness self, that's in the second plane of consciousness, and last below is your psychic being, which is actually, you are not conscious of it, but it has to grow slowly. So these are the three levels of the Purusha. Okay? And note another interesting thing, that is consciousness which is there, it has the power to settle itself in all these seven planes of consciousness. And when it is settling itself in one, its nature changes. As it keeps coming down more and more, it becomes subject to the self-imposition of limitation. It limits itself, it's the capacity to limit itself. So it goes on, goes on, goes on. At the lowest level in matter, it has imposed on itself complete ignorance. It is still there, but it is completely ignorant. Apparently, it is fully conscious, but it has covered itself with heavy blankets of ignorance. At the highest level, nothing. It is fully open and fully conscious of itself. There is gradation. You must remember the gradation. Purusha himself does not execute. Okay? He remains up and guides, but he does not execute. He maintains Prakriti in her action and allows her to express in energy and process and formed result what he perceives in his knowledge. This is very similar to the manager of a company who sits in his office and plans all the execution of whatever has to be done, but he does not act directly himself. He appoints a manager and an assistant manager, and then superintendents down below until finally they are dealing with the workers on the factory floor. So exactly in the same way, the Purusha is the manager sitting in his office, but he is the one who determines everything. And the manager and the assistant manager are the Prakriti. And the lowest Prakriti is the worker. He just does whatever he is told to do. He operates a machine. Okay. So this is very similar to that. Purusha himself does not execute. He maintains Prakriti in her action and allows her to express in energy and process and form result what he perceives in his knowledge. This is the distinction made by the Sankhyas. The Sankhya philosophy says Purusha and Prakriti are always separate from each other. And although it is not at all the true truth, it is a semi-truth, okay? Not in any way the highest truth, either of Purusha or Prakriti, still it is valid and indispensable practical knowledge in the lower hemisphere of existence. So Sankhya is absolutely right in the lower hemisphere of in the physical world. Even in the spiritual world, because you would not know the difference between Purusha and Prakriti unless you go to the spiritual levels of consciousness. We don't know what Purusha and Prakriti is. We are told mechanically and mentally, but that is not knowledge. So, Sankhya philosophy goes into the spiritual planes of consciousness, but doesn't go to the highest. Okay? So, that's what Swami is saying. There is a distinction made by the Sankhya. And the creation that takes place, the Sankhya explains in this way. The Sankhya explains in this way. He says, there are two people. Purusha has got knowledge. He is perfectly knowledgeable and he has got eyes. But he doesn't have, his legs are defective. He is lame. He can't walk. Inactive. Okay? Still. And the other man, who is Prakriti, okay, he has got strong legs. He can move. But he is blind. So, creation takes place by the lame man sitting on the shoulders of the blind man. And together they can walk through the forest and go wherever they want. So that is how creation takes place. It's a combination of Prakriti and Purusha. Or if you want, consciousness and force. Now you can also just see, if force is not there and only consciousness is there, there will be no creation. And if there is only force and no consciousness, creation will be there, but it will be chaotic. It won't be guided and meaningful and systematic and sequence. It won't be. So therefore you need both for the creation everywhere. Even on our physical level, that is true. Okay? So this is what Sarvi is saying. The Sankhya is saying they are separate always. And in Srivamda's philosophy as well as Advaita, they are together always, but inversely proportional to each other. At the highest level, they are equal to each other. Purusha and Prakriti become one. That's what Srivamda meant by the mother's consciousness and my consciousness are the same. Although they seem to be different, essentially they are the same. Srivamda is the Purusha guiding, and mother is the one executing. There would have been no ashram if the mother was not there. It is her creation. Everything that she has done here in the ashram is her creation. And you don't know how detailed she is to guide everything. Okay? Every day she is to get reports from all the departments. We used to have any number of registers where what work has been done used to go from the press to mother and she would sign. Okay? Every day she would see and sometimes she would question why this has not been done, why that has not been done. And this in all the departments. Okay? Such was her guidance. So she is an active force. She is divine. She herself was, I'm not suggesting that she is mechanical force, not at all, because she is divine. Okay? But in the physical world, she is the one guiding. So this is what Srivamda is saying in this paragraph. Clear? We have got 10 minutes more, 9 minutes actually. So the next one we can read. Now, the other part of the Sankhya philosophy, Prakriti is acting. But when you act, you need instruments to act. Okay? A driver drives a car, but he needs a car to drive the car. He needs something. Okay, a farmer has to work, but he can work with instruments. So what are the instruments that Prakriti is given? She is given Satwa, Rajas, Tamas. At our level, we have a body, we have a vital, and we have a mind. And if we don't have a vital body and mind, we can't do anything in the physical world. How can you do anything without body, mind, life? Okay? So that is the next paragraph. We can read it, I think.
I'll read now.
Yeah, please.
The individual soul of a conscious being in a form may identify itself with this experiencing Purusha or with this active Prakriti. If it identifies itself with Prakriti, it is not master, enjoyer, and knower, but reflects the modes and workings of Prakriti. It enters by its identification into that subjection and mechanical working which is characteristic of her. And even by an entire immersion in Prakriti, this soul becomes inconscient or subconscient, asleep in her forms as in the earth and the metal, or almost asleep as in plant life. There, in that inconscience, it is subject to the domination of tamas, the principle, the power, the qualitative mode of obscurity and inertia. Sattva and rajas are there, but they are concealed in the thick coating of tamas, emerging into its own proper nature of consciousness, but not yet truly conscious, because there is still too great a domination of tamas in the nature. The embodied being becomes more and more subject to rajas, the principle, the power, the qualitative mode of action and passion, impelled by desire and instinct. There is then formed and developed the animal nature, narrow in consciousness, rudimentary in intelligence, rajaso-tamasic in vital habit and impulse. Emerging yet farther from the great inconscience towards a spiritual status, the embodied being liberates sattva, the mode of light, and acquires a relative freedom and mastery and knowledge, and with it a qualified and conditioned sense of inner satisfaction and happiness. Man, the mental being in a physical body, should be, but is not, except in a few among the multitude of ensouled bodies of this nature. Ordinarily, he has too much in him of the obscure earth inertia and a troubled, ignorant animal life force to be a soul of light and bliss, or even a mind of harmonious will and knowledge. There is here in man an incomplete and still hampered and baffled ascension towards the true character of the Purusha, free, master, knower, and enjoyer. For these are, in human and earthly experience, relative modes, none giving its single and absolute fruit. All are intermixed with each other, and there is not the pure action of any one of them anywhere. It is their confused and inconstant interaction that determines the experiences of the egoistic human consciousness, swinging in nature's uncertain balance.
Okay, so he has described the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And this is the contribution to Indian philosophy from the Sankhya philosophy. And it's absolutely valid. Tamas is a principle of obscurity and inertia and unconsciousness, and also non-movement. Then the Rajas is the opposite. It is the principle of absolute movement, energy, force, action, but there is no consciousness in it. Then finally you come to Sattva. Sattva is subtle consciousness, okay, understanding, harmony, okay, the balance in nature, everything. But note one thing, that all these three, they correspond to body mind life. They, in the universe, they correspond to matter, to the prana, which is there in the universe, energy, and also there is a mental level of consciousness, which is the mana, buddhi. But all these are in the lower hemisphere, and lower hemisphere is chains. There are laws that bind you. There is no freedom. So the Sankhya philosophy says that tamas is like an iron chain. It binds you. There is no freedom. You think there is free, but you are not free. Your body is completely dominated by and imprisoned with a iron chain. Slightly better is the animal. Matter is bound by chain, it obeys only physical laws. The animal is slightly better because he has got the principle of rajas, action. But he is still completely mechanically guided in his action. And finally, you have man who is, he has a sattvic nature, but the sattva also is a chain only, it's a golden chain. So there is an iron chain and there is a silver chain and there is a golden chain, but it's a chain nevertheless. So you have to get rid of all these things. Then you become trigunatita. You become beyond the three gunas. The gunas are the modes of nature. So this is basically what Sridhar is explaining here in this para. And the keep in mind the basic principles that when the divine Satchidananda is creating the universe, why does he at all create the universe? This is a question that we can't answer satisfactorily so long as you are in the mental consciousness, because the mental consciousness has limitation. Just as the animal also has got a limitation of consciousness and can't do certain things, man also can do much more than the animal. He can create a computer, he can fly in the air, he can sail on the seas, which animal can't do. But he can't understand the higher principles. So this is the Satwa. It's very good at this level. It's the highest element in you. But you won't understand many things. So there is a chain that binds you. You have to get beyond all these chains. Trigunatita, you have to go up. So when the divine is creating the universe, he creates a universe but does not remain aloof. Part of him remains aloof, which is transcendent. But part of him comes down into the universe. He is there in the universe everywhere, hiding behind the forms. And this is when you are able to see the divine presence in the universe, you have the uh, philosophy of pantheism. You think that God is nature. Then finally, the universe also produces the individual. And the individual can be the unicellular creature, it can be caterpillar, it can be the insect, it can be cat, dog, and finally man. So in man, the psychic being is slowly awakening to its true nature. So the divine, when he is plunging himself into matter, hides in his own creation and he is escaping. So that's why it's a Leela. So if you remember these things, then that's is describing here how there has to be this psychic being in you has to awake and your consciousness has to escape from body mind life, the prison of body mind life, and go into the self, the Brahman consciousness. There you realize that you are Purusha and the body mind life given to you was Prakriti. Okay? And there also there are several grades. Those grades are there very detailed manner described in the Gita, and Sri Aurobindo also follows that. Okay? So he has also used the words here. Okay? The words free, master, knower, and enjoyer. So these are all reference to the Gita. We'll discuss that next time because today we have got only 2 minutes left. So we'll discuss that next time. Okay? None giving it single and absolute fruit. Okay? Relative modes. All are intermixed and each other, and there is not a pure action of any one of them. We'll discuss this next time. But basic idea you have got. Prakriti is using the instruments of tamas, rajas, sattva, and it is mechanically bound. But this Prakriti, which seems to be unconscious and subject to laws, is not so subject to laws at all at the highest level. It goes on changing. Okay? So, we will make a note, redo the individual soul. From the universal, now Sri Aurobindo has come to the individual soul. The individual soul, what it is?